I used to think poverty was just the absence of money. But the night my son told me I was the reason we were poor, I realized poverty could also be measured in disappointment and shame, in the hollow sound of love collapsing between two heartbeats. It was raining that evening. The kind of rain that drags the sky down to the street. Our roof leaked again. Little drops of water tapped the kitchen table like a cruel metronome. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift at the hardware store, boots soaked, back aching, pockets almost empty. My wife was washing dishes in silence. My 16-year-old son, Aaron, sat at the table scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up when he said it. "You're the reason we're poor." The words sliced through the steam rising from my cup of instant coffee. I froze. At first I laughed a little, thinking he was joking. But then he looked up and I saw the resentment in his eyes, the same kind I'd once seen in my own mirror when I was his age, glaring at my father. "Excuse me?" I asked quietly. "You heard me," he snapped. "Everyone else's dad has something. A car that works. A house that doesn't look like it's falling apart. You're always talking about hard work, but what has it gotten us?" My wife turned off the faucet, her hands trembling in the sink. The only sound was the rain and the distant thunder rumbling like God's anger. I wanted to tell him about sacrifice. About how I'd worked every day since I was 16, because my own father kicked me out with nothing but a backpack. I wanted to tell him that I'd chosen family over comfort, love over luxury. But all that came out was a whisper. "I'm doing my best, son," he scoffed. "Your best isn't enough." Then he stood, grabbed his jacket, and slammed the door. The sound echoed through me. For a moment I couldn't breathe. That night I sat alone at the kitchen table until the rain stopped. My reflection in the window looked like a ghost of every man who ever failed his family. I didn't sleep. I just thought. About the jobs I'd lost, the dreams I'd buried, the opportunities I'd turned down because I couldn't afford risk. And most of all about my father, the man I hadn't spoken to in 25 years. He was a name people whispered in town. Charles Whitmore, the iron-willed businessman who built an empire from steel and sweat. He'd built cities, crushed rivals, and when I was 20, crushed me too. He'd wanted me to join the family business, to become his mirror image, cold, ruthless, efficient. But I wanted to live differently. I wanted to work with my hands to build things that mattered, not just profits. When I refused, he disowned me. His last words to me had been, "You'll regret this, boy. One day you'll come crawling back." I never did. Not when my mother died. Not when my first child was born. Not even when we could barely afford food. Pride can be as heavy as poverty. 3 days after Aaron's outburst, I stood outside a pawn shop holding my father's old pocket watch, the only thing of value he'd ever given me. I'd kept it locked away for years, more a wound than a memory. The brass was tarnished, the glass cracked, but when I wound it, it still ticked faithfully, as if mocking time itself. I thought about selling it. Maybe it could cover rent for another month. But something stopped me, a feeling, a whisper. Maybe it was foolish hope, maybe guilt, but instead of selling it, I slipped it back into my pocket. The next day at work, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something told me to answer. "Is this Mr. Daniel Whitmore?" a voice asked. "Yes." "This is Martin Green from the law firm Green & Coleman. I represent the estate of Charles Whitmore. Could you come to our office tomorrow morning? It's urgent." For a moment I forgot how to speak. "My father?" "Yes, sir. He passed away 2 weeks ago." My knees went weak. My father dead? When I hung up, I just stood there in the middle of the hardware store, sawdust floating through the sunlight like slow-motion snow. That night, I told my wife. She looked at me carefully. "Are you going to go?" I nodded slowly. "I think I have to," Aaron overheard. He didn't say anything, just gave me a cold glance and went back to his phone. The next morning I put on my only suit, one that still smelled faintly of dust and memories. The law firm was downtown, All marble floors and silent elevators. The receptionist smiled politely. Mr. Green will see you now. Inside his office, an older man with kind eyes and silver hair stood to shake my hand. Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry for your loss. Your father was a complicated man. That was one way to put it. He motioned for me to sit. Then he slid a thick envelope across the desk. Your father left specific instructions for you. A letter and a key. A key? I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, his handwriting sharp and commanding even in death. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I've watched your life from afar, and though you rejected my world, I could never stop caring about you. Enclosed is a key. You'll know where it belongs. Charles Whitmore. I stared at the key, old heavy, with the initials CW engraved on it. I don't understand, I said. What does this open? Mr. Green smiled faintly. That's not for me to say. But your father's safe deposit box is still active at Whitmore Bank. Perhaps start there. The name hit me like thunder. Whitmore Bank. His pride and legacy, the institution that bore his name. The next day I walked into that bank like a ghost entering a cathedral. Everything gleamed. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, the scent of expensive silence. The manager, a tall man with slick hair, met me at the counter. Good morning, sir. How can we assist you? I showed him the key. I was told this might belong to a safe deposit box under my father's name. He looked at the key, then at me. When he read the engraving, his face changed. The color drained. One moment, please, he murmured, disappearing into the back. I waited. My palms were sweating. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. When he returned, he was pale. Sir, please follow me. He led me to a private room. Inside was a large steel box resting on the table. This box hasn't been opened in over 20 years, he said softly. Your father left strict instructions that only you could open it. My hands shook as I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, as if waiting all these years just for me. When I lifted the lid, the room fell silent. Inside was not gold, not cash, not jewelry. It was a briefcase, old leather, cracked with age, and a single envelope taped to it with my name. I opened the envelope. Daniel, everything I took from you I now return. The answers you seek, the truth you never knew. Open the case. I hesitated, then unlatched it. Inside were stacks of documents, photographs, and a USB drive. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, is everything all right? I nodded slowly, but I could feel something shift inside me, a storm rising. Because the first document I saw was titled, Whitmore Holdings Transfer of Ownership. Beneficiary, Daniel Whitmore. Total assets, $267,000. The manager stared at me, waiting for some reaction, but I couldn't speak. The letters on the page blurred until they were just shapes. $267 million. My father had left me his entire empire after 25 years of silence. For a moment I felt nothing. No joy, no triumph. Just a strange weight pressing against my chest. I walked out of the bank with the briefcase clutched to my chest like it might disappear if I let go. The sun outside was painfully bright, the street noise distant and unreal. I wanted to laugh or cry or shout, but all I could do was walk. When I got home, my wife met me at the door. What happened? She asked, and I handed her the papers. She read them twice. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. Daniel, is this real? I think so, I whispered. But I don't know why. Aaron came down the stairs then, still wearing his headphones. What's going on? He asked, impatient. His mother looked at me. I nodded. Your grandfather died, I said quietly, and he left us. Everything. Aaron pulled out one earbud. Everything? Like what? I handed him the letter. He read the first few lines, then looked up, suspicious. You're kidding. I'm not. For a long time, no one spoke. Then he laughed, nervous, unbelieving. So when we're rich? Just like that? I guess so. He shook his head. That's insane. Then his smile faded. Why you? You said he hated you. I don't know, I said, and I meant it. That night I couldn't sleep. The documents spread across the kitchen table looked like ghosts, proof of something I couldn't yet accept. I plugged in the old USB drive that had been in the case. A folder appeared. To my son. Inside were scanned letters, photographs, and a video file. When I clicked play, my father's face appeared on the screen. Older, frailer than I remembered. If you're watching this, he said, voice rough but steady, then I'm gone. I won't pretend I was a good father. I was proud, cruel, and blind to what mattered. But I watched you. I saw the man you became. You worked for everything I tried to hand you, and you never asked for a penny. That's why this is yours. He paused, breathing hard. The company is not just money, Daniel. It's people, thousands of them. Don't repeat my mistakes. Build something worth inheriting. The screen went black. I sat there for hours after the video ended. All the years of anger, of blame, of trying to be the opposite of him. They crashed together inside me until I couldn't tell where hate ended and forgiveness began. At dawn, Aaron came downstairs. He saw the video frozen on the laptop. That's him? I nodded. He stared for a moment, then said quietly, He looks like you. I laughed under my breath. That's what I was afraid of. The next weeks blurred. Lawyers, accountants, meetings. Suddenly I was no longer Daniel from the hardware store. I was Daniel Whitmore, CEO, heir to a fortune I hadn't earned but couldn't escape. Cameras followed me, reporters asked questions. Old acquaintances reappeared with bright smiles and open hands. At night, when the house was silent, I sat on the back porch and thought about the man I'd been a month ago. The man my son had called a failure. I missed him. That version of me had known what every dollar meant. He'd known how to fight. Money changes the world around you before it changes you, but it always catches up. One afternoon, I walked through the factory that had started it all. The workers stopped to stare. Some nodded respectfully. Others looked at me with cautious hope. The foreman, a heavy-set man with grease-stained hands, approached. Mr. Whitmore, he said, your father built this place. We've kept it running, but barely. Most thought the company would be sold when he died. Not anymore, I said. No one's losing their jobs. We're rebuilding, not selling. His eyes widened. Thank you, sir. As he walked away, I realized how strange it felt to be thanked for simply doing the right thing. That night, I gathered my family in the living room. Listen, I said. This money, it doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase the years we struggled, but it gives us a chance to do something meaningful. Aaron leaned forward. Like what? Like helping people who think they've already lost. Like proving that a man's worth isn't measured by his bank account, but by how he uses it. He looked skeptical but curious. You really believe that? I have to, I said. Because if I don't, then all of this was for nothing. Over the next months, we turned the company into something new. We started a foundation for small businesses, funded scholarships for kids who couldn't afford college, rebuilt homes in the neighborhoods my father had once ignored. At first, Aaron wasn't interested, but slowly he began showing up to meetings, asking questions, offering ideas. One day he came home from volunteering and said almost shyly, Dad, you were right about work feeling different when it helps someone. I smiled, remembering his words that night in the kitchen. I told you, son, hard work always pays off. Sometimes it just takes longer than we want. He grinned, and for the first time in years I saw the boy he used to be, the one who believed in me. Still, there were nights I sat alone with the briefcase on my lap, tracing the scars in the leather. It reminded me that every fortune begins as a story, and every story begins with someone being broken. One evening, a reporter asked me during an interview, Mr. Whitmore, what's it like to go from poverty to immense wealth overnight? I thought for a moment. It's not the money that changes you, I said. It's realizing what you could have done all along if you hadn't been afraid. She smiled politely, but I saw she didn't understand. That was fine. Some lessons can't be explained. They have to be lived. Months later, I visited my father's grave. The headstone was simple. No mansion could have humbled him like those few square feet of earth. I placed the old pocket watch beside the stone and whispered, "You were right about one thing. I did regret it, but not the way you thought." The wind picked up, and for a second I imagined his voice again, cold but proud. Maybe it was forgiveness, maybe just memory. When I turned to leave, Aaron was standing a few steps behind me. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time, I think I am." He looked down at the grave, then at me. "You know, when I said what I said that night, I didn't mean it." "I know," I told him. "We all say things we regret when we're lost." He hesitated. "Thanks for not giving up on me," I smiled. "That's what fathers are for." As we walked back to the car, I thought about how easily life can turn, how a single sentence can wound, how a single letter can heal. The real inheritance wasn't the money. It was the chance to start again, to rebuild what pride had broken. And maybe that's what wealth really is. Not the numbers in a bank, but the moments when you choose forgiveness over anger, purpose over comfort, love over fear. The world will measure you by what you own, but your children will remember you for what you gave. That night, as I stood on the balcony of our new home overlooking the city, I whispered to the quiet sky, "We're not poor anymore, Aaron. But even when we were never empty." He stepped beside me and smiled. "So what now?" "Now," I said, "we build something that outlives the money." The city lights flickered below like scattered stars, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a promise.